Hello there my RPG lovers and welcome to another video. Mount & Blade Bannerlord is finally here. Well, kinda. Even though this is just an early access and some features are missing, you can play through the whole campaign and invest crazy amount of hours. Tailward said that this early access version contains all the main staples of the Mount & Blade experience, with a host of content that is new to the series. Every major feature is implemented, but they plan to add more stuff like new quests, unique maps for towns, castles and villages, more voiceovers and more multiplayer options. That being said, you will find some bugs for sure, but nothing game breaking. I stumbled upon some missing textures here and there, and sometimes the directional arrows which are used in combat appeared out of the combat while I was just exploring the city. There are probably more similar bugs, and Tailwords also said there might be some problems with how the game is balanced. I played for about 5 hours so far, and that's basically nothing for this sandbox medieval strategy action RPG. How often can you use those 6 words in the same sentence? Not very often, if at all. If you played Warband or any other Mount & Blade game, this will be very familiar to you. If I would have to describe my whole experience so far, I would say that Bannerlord is basically Warband with much better physics engine, better graphics and much better UI. If I'm being honest, I was really afraid and worried about the gameplay because Tailwords is using the new engine for Bannerlord. Even though Warband looks really outdated now, the gameplay is still satisfying as ever. So I imagine that creating a similar experience in a totally new engine was not an easy task. And it wouldn't be fair to just call it a similar experience. The gameplay in Bannerlord feels amazing, especially if you're coming from older Mount & Blade games. But in general as well, although it definitely takes some time to get used to, even if you played Warband. But like I already mentioned, physics are greatly improved, and this is undoubtedly the best new addition to Bannerlord's gameplay. There is a strong sense of weight behind your attacks, and the hit feedback feels amazing. You have to try and kill someone with a precise spear to the head. Bannerlord uses the same philosophy as Warband when it comes to how combat works. The premise of this whole combat system is very simple in its core, but yet so effective. You have 4 directional attacks and blocks that you have to manually control with your mouse, but it's actually much more than that. Especially when enemies start to fake their attacks. They will hold the weapon in a particular attack direction only to quickly switch to another attack direction and try to confuse you. This was actually a common tactic by everyone who played multiplayer in Warband. But if you carefully watch your enemy, you'll be able to react properly most of the time. This becomes really hard in fights with multiple opponents, but it's still manageable when you get better and more comfortable with controls. And if you use your brain a little bit more than usual, you can create an advantage for yourself in certain situations. I won't talk in depth about gameplay mechanics because I'll leave that for the full review. By the way, I played a couple of arena tournaments and I managed to be the champion once. I tweaked the difficulty settings at the beginning and I made everything a little bit harder than the default options. And I suggest you to do the same because the difficulty feels really good. These options are similar to Warband's difficulty settings, if not identical. Speaking about the tournaments, they are better than ever, and besides betting on yourself, you can also win some special awards if you manage to be the champion, like this two-handed axe. And here's one tip, the arena is the best place to learn how the combat works. It doesn't have to be the tournament, just enter the arena and practice some fights. And just like the arena, regular fights in the open world are drastically improved. The tactics menu looks much better, the locations are beautiful, and fighting even the weakest enemies like looters is always great. The reason why I'm focusing a lot on the gameplay and fights is really obvious. You'll spend around 80% of your time fighting in the game, so it has to be good. And I think that Tailwords really nailed it with Bannerlord. But let's talk about some other stuff which are equally important. The character progression has also received some much needed improvements. Well, at least it seems like that. I can't claim anything for sure because I don't have a lot of hours invested. But this new progression system has a stronger RPG vibe. At least in the way it's presented to the player, although it can be a bit confusing. Then we have the new character creation, which is basically like Warband with prettier menus and graphics. You'll still get to choose your background, but now you can actually see everything, not just the wall of text like in Warband. Speaking about the menus, let's talk about the UI. There are some small improvements that you'll immediately notice if you're coming from Warband. The most obvious change are those icons on every place on the map, but there are a lot more subtle little improvements that will help you. To put it simply, it basically looks like a map from a modern strategy game, and this goes for every other aspect of the user interface. Bannerlord has streamlined the navigation through different menus, and let's be honest, navigating through warband menus was a nightmare. In Bannerlord, you have an encyclopedia that will guide you through different menus and submenus. The dialogue choices from a couple of quests that I finished had some real consequences. You will gain and lose reputation depending on your choices. I also have to mention the music in the game. You will hear familiar tracks from Warband, but they are done in a different style, as well as the sound effects. And the last thing I would have to mention is the multiplayer mode. There are some new and interesting gameplay modes, but I only played a couple of matches in total. But to be honest, I'll be spending most of my time with Bannerlord in the single player mode. I'll definitely do a review, so stick around if you want to see that. But I don't want to rush through the game, so it might take a while. Don't forget to subscribe for more content and click on the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads. Special thanks to my Patreons, and if you as well want to become one of them, all the links are in the description. Patreon is definitely the best place to directly support my work, and every contribution is highly appreciated. That would be all, and I'll see you in the next one.